Neville Brand actually despised him more than anyone. In order to understand this profound loathing, one must reflect back upon the man himself, his existence, and the morals that characterized him. Neville Brand was born Lawrence Neville Brand on the 13th day of August in 1920 in Griswold, Iowa. He came of age during one of the most trying times in American history, a childhood marred by the Great Depression. Life in small-town Iowa was not easy, but it instilled in him a resilience that would define both his personal journey and his acting career. He was one of the most distinctive character actors of mid-20th century Hollywood, known for his rugged appearance, gravelly voice, and intimidating presence on screen. While the other actors of his generation were more likely to play charming leading men, Brand excelled at playing hard-edged, risky, and psychologically complex characters. His legacy was not glamour or superstardom, but authenticity. For all that, though, he also lived a life premised on experiences that sculpted the grit and realism he brought to his characters later. Growing up during the Depression years taught Neville Brand the importance of work, determination, and discipline. These would only be amplified during World War II, in which he joined the United States Army. He was assigned to the 331st Infantry Regiment, 83rd Infantry Division, where he witnessed some of the most intense fighting in Europe. He was more than just another soldier. He distinguished himself in combat. In one especially gruesome battle, Brand was badly injured, and yet his bravery was rewarded with a Silver Star for gallantry in action. The war left him with physical scars, as well as psychic ones, the memories of combat haunting him throughout his life. These experiences provided him with the inner strength and emotional complexity that carried over directly into his acting. While most Hollywood stars who only acted like soldiers or criminals, Brand had experienced violence and terror. He knew what danger was in reality, and when he portrayed threatening characters on the screen, people sensed that realism because it was born out of reality. When the war was over, Neville Brand went back to the United States with a sense of direction, but also with a necessity to restore his life. As with many veterans, he took advantage of the GI Bill to learn how to act. Eventually, he went on to study at the American Theater Wing in New York, where he learned his craft in the theater before venturing into the movies. His rugged good looks, piercing eyes, and physical build made him a natural for Hollywood roles, especially those demanding toughness and menace. By the late 1940s, he was starting to appear in movies, but it was during the 1950s and 1960s that he established himself as one of Hollywood's go-to heavies. One of his first major breakthrough roles was in the 1950 noir suspense thriller DOA, where he portrayed a merciless gangster. The brief performance was unforgettable, and it showed that Brand could make an impression even with short screen time. Before long, he was appearing in classics like Stalag 17, 1953, playing a prisoner of war with the same integrity he had established as a decorated veteran, and Riot in Cell Block 11, 1954, a gripping prison drama in which his unbridled energy dominated the screen. Hollywood soon appreciated that Brand possessed a quality of his own. He was frighteningly realistic. Whether portraying outlaws, convicts, or vicious enforcers, he was menace incarnate in a manner no school of acting could ever instruct. His audiences appreciated the authenticity, and his directors continued to call him. Brand's career exploded in westerns and war movies, two genres that could not have been more suited to his off-screen life. His characters were never caricatures. They were based on the sort of toughness and depth he himself possessed. But Brand was not just a movie villain. He was versatile enough to branch out into television, where he gained even wider exposure. His most prominent television role was in Laredo, 1965 to 1967, a Western television series where he was Texas Ranger Reese Bennett. Here, people got a different impression of him. Rather than merely menace and violence, he brought humor, wit, and charm with him in addition to maintaining the physicality that had been his hallmark. He showed that he could do both action and comedy, and he won over a loyal following who would remember him not just as a heavy, but as a diverse actor. Off-screen, Neville Brand was a far cry from the characters he portrayed. While Hollywood stereotyped him as a thug or crook, his acquaintances characterized a warm, intelligent, and deeply sensitive man. He was a voracious reader and collector who had a special love for literature. His Sacramento home was turned into a sanctuary for books and art, a reflection of the intellectual character of a man stereotyped as rough and threatening. But even while he developed this inner world, he struggled with the horrors of war. He battled post-traumatic stress disorder years before anyone had ever heard of it, and this usually expressed itself in periods of alcoholism. These excesses would ultimately cost him most of his wealth and take a toll on his physical health, but they also made him deeply human to everyone who knew him. Neville Brand's life was complicated when it came to his personal relationships. He was first married to Jean Enfield, but their marriage lasted only until 1955, at the peak of his success in Hollywood. He married Laura Ray Aho in 1957, and they had 3 daughters together. This marriage lasted for 12 years before it ended in 1969. Even with his demanding profession and personal vices, the people who knew him mentioned that Brand was a loving father who greatly adored his children. Then there was May Brand, whom he married later and with whom he stayed until she died in 1992, just before he passed away himself. These marriages, his children, and his social circle grounded him in ways that success never could. Neville Brand was politically engaged as well. He endorsed Dwight D. Eisenhower's presidential run in 1952, aligning himself with Republican ideologies of the day. Politics was not so much about celebrity plug for Brand, but about an attitude of discipline, leadership, and patriotism, ideals tempered in war. But possibly the most interesting aspect of Neville Brand's life was his rabid disdain for Elvis Presley. Brand did not merely dislike Elvis, he openly admitted, "I've hated nobody more in my life than that Presley." This was not a casual remark, but something he repeated in interviews, making it clear that his disdain ran deep. The reasons for this animosity were layered. Having served in World War II and lived through one of the bloodiest wars ever fought, Brand had a worldview founded on discipline, sacrifice, and integrity. To him, Elvis represented everything crass, superficial, and undeserved about post-war American society. He saw Presley's meteoric rise to stardom as a success of merchandising and hype over real talent and artistry. Brand would frequently comment that fame was something to be gained by working hard, talent, and commitment, the same qualities that characterized his own life and the lives of those people he admired. For him, Elvis embodied the opposite, an insincere character created in order to cater to lowest common denominators. He made millions of children swoon over a gimmick. Brand once complained bitterly, saying that Presley was faking to be what he was not. For Brand, this was not artistic deception, it was moral decay. He regarded Elvis's shaking performances, sexed upstage persona, and bad boy image as a corrupting influence on America's youth, a trespass on the values that Brand himself had risked death to uphold during the war. His remarks regarding Elvis were as ideological as they were personal. He felt Presley walked around with an air of arrogance, as if the world was his, and this infuriated Brand. He acknowledged on several occasions that he wanted to hit Elvis every time he appeared on screen. And though envy certainly had a part in it, seeing a younger man become a cultural titan while he himself worked as a character actor, Brand's anger was rooted in his sense that society was glorifying the wrong hero. Where soldiers and gritty actors bled and offered sacrifice, performers such as Presley harvested worship and profit without owing the same costs. This animosity was not tempered with age. Even in his later years, Neville Brand never apologized for hating Elvis Presley. For him, it was not petty but principle. He regarded Elvis as the emblem of a cultural backslide, a world that honored charm over substance, marketing over accomplishment, and spectacle over reality. Brand, who had lived real war, real suffering, and real hardship, could not admire such an individual. His words, "I hated him more than anyone," were not merely an insult to Elvis, but a statement of his own personal code of honor, one that was developed in war and brought with him onto the screen. Alas, Brand's internal struggles with PTSD and alcoholism worsened with age. In a 1975 interview, he conceded that drinking had lost him most of his wealth. Money troubles compounded the severity of his failing health, but even in poverty, he never lost dignity. In the 1980s, he still worked intermittently in television and movies, though his health was declining. Neville Brand died on April 16, 1992, at Sutter General Hospital in Sacramento, California. He was 71 years of age, and the cause was emphysema, a chronic lung condition generally associated with extended smoking. The disease had increased over the years, gradually stripping him of his energy. But even in his last years, friends remembered that he met his decline with quiet bravery, never succumbing to self-pity, but instead remaining composed and dignified. His passing brought an end to a remarkable life, a life of heroism, artistry, struggle, and conviction. After his death, Brand's family had a private funeral. In contrast to Hollywood's showy public memorials, his funeral was small and quiet, true to the man himself, earthy, humble, and honest. He was cremated afterward and buried in the Morning Glory Room at East Lawn Memorial Park in Sacramento. It was a quiet sanctuary, an appropriate closing act for a man who had so selflessly sacrificed so much of himself, both on and off the battlefield and on and off the screen. Neville Brand's own legacy lives not in superstardom or flashy fame, but in the integrity of his craft. He worked in more than 100 films and television programs, leaving a legacy that continues to astound audiences with its realism and ferocity. His actors were never empty evil, but men of depth, danger, and humanity. He lived his life according to principles forged in adversity and war, and even his infamous dislike for Elvis Presley was a reflection of his unshakable commitment to discipline, sacrifice, and honesty. He might never have been Hollywood's brightest light, but he was certainly one of its most genuine, and his legacy continues to be indelibly marked on the hearts of those who prefer sincerity to artifice.